Hey everybody, Lauren Fitz here. I just wanted to give you guys a quick heads up that even though the podcast is awesome, the audio quality is not the same quality that you're used to hearing because we recorded it off-site. But please stay tuned because all of the content is totally worth every single second. So hope you enjoy the episode. You are listening to the Fitz and Healthy podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lauren Fitzgerald, also known as Lauren Fitz. I'm a medical doctor, a fitness instructor, an entrepreneur, a health and fitness coach, but most importantly, I am a lover of life. And here on the Fitz and Healthy podcast, I intend to give you a ton of great information and knowledge that will serve as potential power so that you can live a life by design and make it more fits and healthy. And don't forget to listen to the disclaimer at the end. I'm not your doctor, yo. All right, enjoy the episode. Much love. Ciao. Hello and welcome to the Fitz and Healthy podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lauren Fitz, and I am accompanied by my gorgeous co-host, Cinthanie from Cinthanie.com. Hey, girl.
Make me blush. Hey, girl. Hey.
So I seriously feel like it's been forever since I've seen you because the past couple of weeks I have been either traveling or I was in Santa Monica interviewing Chris Downing, which I cannot wait for that podcast to launch.
I want to listen to it.
Yeah.
I haven't heard it yet.
That's right. It's the 27th of June.
For an advance copy.
Yeah, for real. No, it's an amazing one. Like literally, cool. I don't know if you saw my snap after. It was like my eyes were dazed because I was just like so
Total euphoria.
I mean, because before the interview, I didn't give him any kind of heads up. Like we just talked. And I mean, some of the stuff he told me, I was just like literally made speechless. And you know, it takes a lot to make me speechless.
Yeah.
So
I've never met him, but he just seems like such a solid person all around. He just has a good vibe. Yeah, no, for sure. Cool.
Good dude. And change a lot of people's lives without a doubt.
Cool.
Without a doubt. So this is an episode that we've been talking about doing for a while now. And I think it's going to be one that's going to be eye-opening to a lot of people, but also it's going to be one that it's going to be hard to wrap your brain around if this is the first time that you've heard this concept.
Sure.
And I think I want to title this Biology, Not Physics, because ultimately this is what we need to make the mental change to, right?
Yeah.
The mental change of I've got to exercise and eat less so that I can lose weight and you know, get that body that I want, right?
Yeah. Eat less, exercise more.
Yes. Because, you know, depending on how old you are, I mean, I'm 37 years old at this point. And so pretty much for 37 years, I have heard nothing but if you want to lose weight, you got to just cut your calories, exercise more, and you'll be able to lose weight. And that works temporarily for some people, but the fact is that we've been doing that for the past 50 years. And what do we have?
Yeah, we're the most obese we have ever been, the sickest we have ever been.
Absolutely. So when was the first time that you ever were introduced to the concept that this way of thinking might actually not only be not correct, but actually might be causing all of the problems?
Well, I mean, probably about 2 years ago, I think, when I really was like introduced to health and fitness, I was introduced to that world by somebody who already kind of had forward
an understanding.
Thinking. Yeah. And so that was the first thing that I heard about exercise and fitness and stuff like that, that basically everything that you're taught needs to be flipped on its head.
Is wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. Everything you think you know needs to be flipped on its head.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and everything that you're told by anywhere from doctors to health and fitness magazines to TV shows.
Articles.
Everything.
Yeah.
The government. I mean, literally this way of thinking has transformed the health, not just of our nation, but of our world. I
Yeah,
mean, truly, like
absolutely.
it's obviously America is one of the best examples of how terrible the outcome is. But the fact is that if the whole calories in versus calories out really worked, we wouldn't be having the problems that we have today. And we're just talking obesity alone, but I mean, we can open up the whole canister of not just obesity, but diabetes, hypertension, all of the other associated disease processes that we now see and we just think are common. And the fact is that humans have been around for 2.5 million years. And agriculture has only been around for 12,000 years. So if you think about how long humans have been in existence, the 12,000 years, that sounds like a long time, right? But the fact is that agriculture has been like less than 0.5% of our human existence.
That's really interesting if you think about it. Like,
right?
Really, really interesting.
Right. So a lot of people, and we're going to be talking about all sorts of stuff, but one word that will definitely come up that if you're new to hearing this word, I don't know, you need to crawl out under the rock that you're living in, or under, is paleo. And paleo comes from the Paleolithic time period, and that's the cave, exactly. And I
name for it.
Yes, and of course with the whole paleo movement, there's a bunch of crap knowledge as well. But we will be talking about paleo type nutrition and why that concept, when taken appropriately and not abused by food companies to want to make money off of you, it's actually it's where a lot of people are going to end up going. So first things first, I want to title this physics. It's not physics, it's biology, right? And why that is because the whole concept behind, well, if you want to lose weight, it's all about how much a kcal is. So a calorie is essentially a unit of energy. And they came up with this whole idea that, well, food that we eat gives us energy and we burn energy. So if you eat a certain amount of energy and you burn more of it, then it's going to be this physics equation. You can neither create nor destroy energy, right? If it were that easy, we would be walking around all super skinny, because the fact is that, I mean, I myself have done the whole calorie restriction thing. That's what I did for so many years. I've told quite a few of my patients over the years, because they've always looked to me for advice, because I was one of the few physicians that was not overweight. I've given bad advice because I was telling people what I learned in med school, what I learned from every other aspect, right? But the fact is that it's biology, because biology has to do with our hormones and nutrients and how the food that we eat affects our body and our hormones and our genes. And it's so much more complicated than just calories in versus calories out. Now, there are great examples. And the one thing that I want the listeners to always come away from is, look, don't just take yours and my advice. Knowledge is potential power. And of course, one thing that I want our podcast to elicit from people is that thirst to get more knowledge. And okay, well, I trust Lauren and Cinthanie, but I have these questions, and this doesn't really make sense, because that internal voice will lead you to truth. And I see that. I say that because there were so many times in medical school that I didn't listen to that internal voice. Like, well, if this was right, then why would we see this? Like, for example, a great example is you go to a third world country, and I don't know how many third world countries you've been to. I went to my first one I think I was in med school. I went to Honduras, and literally, granted, you don't have to go to a third world country to see poverty. You can go, to any poverty stricken neighborhood in the United States to see the same phenomenon. But that was kind of the first time that I ever had real experience in a third world country. And one thing that just didn't make sense to me was that, if it was the whole calories in versus calories out, then the people that are wealthy, that have more money to buy more food, well, shouldn't they be eating more and they be fatter? But instead, it's opposite. Usually, when you go to poverty-stricken places, that's where you see a majority of poverty, and especially not poverty, of obesity. And sorry, you knew what I would. You were like shaking my head.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that so?
Yeah. One of the first things that I noticed was these moms who had babies that were obviously malnutritioned, yet they were fat. The moms were fat. And that goes against the maternal instinct that is found in nature, right?
Right.
So what you're telling me is that this mom feeds herself, but doesn't feed her babies.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense, right?
It's a really, really good way to put it. Yeah.
It's one of the contradictions. It's one of the many contradictions that people just have chosen to ignore over the last 50, 60, 70 years of the whole questioning. Is it just really calories in versus calories out?
Yeah.
And it doesn't make sense, right? Maternal instinct is found not just in humans, it's found in every single, it's found in nature. And
care for yours before you care for you.
Exactly. So you can't tell me that every single mom that is obese but has children that are literally malnourished preferentially feeding themselves. No.
Yeah.
Guess what? It's more than just calories in versus calories out. Another great example that is I never really continued my thought process, if I will, going on the fact that I want everyone to continue to question and find their answers to the question, was you would find, because usually people that are in the lower socioeconomic classes usually have jobs that require more labor, right? More physical activity, right? So why are so many of them overweight? If it's look at people that work the oil field, work at manual laborers. Those people are burning crazy calories working, right? So if it were just calories in versus calories out, shouldn't they all be super skinny? Everyone that's doing manual labor should be super skinny. It's not the case, though. More times than not, you see, those patients were always, during residency. So residency, for those that don't know, it's it's the stage after medical school. So you go to medical school, you get your medical degree, then you go to residency training in your specialty. And most residencies train at the county hospitals, where you take care of the indigenous and the sickest people and the poorest people usually. And, it's terrible, but we've learned so much about medicine from treating poverty-stricken populations, because that's where a majority of illnesses are. Not to say that you don't, because you still see illnesses and disease processes in higher socioeconomic, but just statistically speaking, the poorer you are, the more health problems you're going to have.
Yeah.
And so being in residency, I took care of some of the poorest people in South Texas, and that would come over from Mexico illegally to get treatment, and be seen by our hospitals. And so, if it were just as easy as, well, these people are just eating too much and not exercising enough, they would all be thin, and none of them would have diseases. And that's not the case. That's not the case. So, so there are a few other great examples that I want to get people's wheels spinning, thinking that, okay, maybe this whole calorie in versus calorie out thing isn't right. Because ultimately you can listen to this podcast and, okay, well, she's got some good points, but if you don't change your thinking process, you're going to be stuck in the same rat wheel that everyone else is.
Sure.
Right. So there are great examples from all over the world in different times that have had studies that look at these poor populations that are just disease ridden and full of obesity. One, if you've read any kind of book that is nutrition based, you'll hear a lot about the Pima Indians. Does that sound familiar at all?
I think so. Yeah.
So the Pima Indians, they known for, and they've been studied a lot because they are such a poor Native American tribe that obesity is rampant in it. So that's one. African Americans, there was a study of African Americans in South Carolina in, I believe, the 60s, that huge obesity found in that population, yet very poor. So you can't just assume that these people don't have money to buy food. Well, they're obese. So how I mean, it just contradicts everything, right?
Sure.
So now we have to change it from seeing it malnutrition versus overnutrition. Right? Because not nowadays, for decades now, we have seen it as overnutrition.
Yeah.
Right. But instead, we need to change our mindset to malnutrition, because the fact is that these people are eating foods that our bodies weren't designed to eat.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And getting past all of the preconceived notions, if you will, that are associated with obesity. A classic one, anyone that has ever struggled with obesity has felt judgment of other people, because our society sees obese people as gluttons, sloth-like.
Yeah.
And I mean, that comes along with so many other issues to be mentioned later. But
there's a negative stigma that comes along with it. No matter what it is due to, no matter if it's due to what you eat or due to disease processes or whatever, it just, in general, it does have a negative stigma.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one thing that we have to start looking at is the malnutrition, and malnutrition has to do with the foods we eat. And granted, it's not quite as easy as just changing the foods that we eat, because there are so many other factors that affect our biology. But again, changing that mindset of physics to biology, because it's not just thermodynamics. It is our body and the biology and the way in which it interacts with our environment. So that means the food we eat, the drinks that we drink, the environment that we live in, when we travel, what we're exposed to. There's so many different factors that go into it. And beliefs of what our food is doing to our body. I mean, I think that it'll probably be another few decades before we can really make people understand that the fat in your diet does not lead to heart disease. Even though there have never been any good conclusive studies that have actually said 100% the fat in your diet leads to heart disease, because it's not true. And so that's just changing this mindset is one challenge that we're going to have on this journey of our podcast.
For sure. But that's why we have it, is because our purpose, and I feel like I say this almost every episode, but our purpose is to give you information that's thought-provoking, that makes you hungry for more knowledge, so that you can make an educated decision of what you can do to improve your health. Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's so true. So true. One study that was huge, and they spent over $1 billion over 8 years looking at thousands of women, was the Women's Health Initiative. It was done, I believe, in the 90s. It was one that I remember in med school and residency we studied, but
Sure.
they were looking at a whole bunch of different things, and they were able to make conclusions about other topics that they weren't even looking to study, like low fat diets,
Yeah.
calorie restricted diets, fat, and that led to heart disease. And you know, we could just do a whole podcast on that study. We won't today, but one of the conclusions that they came across from that study was that the women that were eating less. So I believe it was like 365 calories less. So calorie restricted diets.
Yeah.
Over 8 years, only lost 2 pounds. 2 pounds.
Not like fluctuated,
no,
but just total.
And not only did they only lose 2 pounds, but their abdominal circumference increased, which that's way more important. And that's, that's one of the reasons you are in your with your clients coaching. Cause, the listeners, we both are coaches, health and fitness coaches. I never get excited about the number on the scale, because that number, I mean, truly it does more harm than good in most people's minds. And it doesn't tell us a whole lot.
I ask my clients to not step on their scales, but to take pictures.
Yep.
Anytime you feel good or bad, just take a picture, because a picture says so much more. You'd be so surprised within a week of changing your nutrition or whatever, that the scale might say you lost a pound, but the inches and what you actually look like can be drastically different.
Yep.
So my clients and I, we focus on macronutrients instead of calorie counts, and we focus on pictures and non-scale victories instead of a scale.
Amen. And I wish more people would have that mindset. It's hard to untrain people to get away from the scale.
Well, it's the same thing with, I think it's just a numbers game for people, like this whole calories in versus calories out. Like you said, people want the physics of it. It's a numbers game. And the same thing with weighing themselves, because they have been taught to believe that it's a numbers game. They want to see it change in order to feel like they're making progress.
Absolutely. And while there is definitely something to be said about data collecting and recording and keeping your own journal of your progress and whatnot. Just that one particular number, I believe, does more harm than good. Especially with anyone that has issues with any kind of eating disorder. Or
I have so many clients that are middle-aged women that say, I want to be 127 pounds because that's what I was in college, and I just look and I'm just like, no, girl, we got to stop going back to the good old days. Today is gonna be the good day. Like, not back then, now.
Exactly.
And they just have this idea of, like, I think it's more related to an emotional peak in their life than it is really like that scale number. So just like you said in that study that it led to so many other things, just the number that you think you want is connected to so many more things than just the number.
Right. And one good tactic that I think that because so much of what we do as coaches is helping change the mindset and helping refocus, instead of that number, getting focused on things that are non-scale victories and just visualizing, looking in the mirror and being proud of what you see.
Yes.
One of my clients actually did a live Facebook broadcast showing her breaking her scale.
That's awesome.
I think we should do that with everyone.
That's on my list of to-dos. No, that I was just thinking about that. Like, that's on my list of to-dos, is probably go like smash a scale.
For real. But the whole thing that led into this was the fact that the 8,000 women had, or that, not 8,000, it was more than that. I think it was like 30,000. Over 8 years had an increase in abdominal circumference. And that we do know is an indicator of visceral fat, which is definitely an indicator of increased risk for heart disease. And cardiac events like a heart attack, also
Yeah.
known as an MI,
Yeah.
myocardial infarction.
Mhm.
So that being said, and let me correct, the Women's Health Initiative, I believe, was over 50,000 women. So, I mean, that's a huge data. And that's why
it was a lot of
it was
women
a lot of women over
quite a few years.
yes. And a lot of
Let's put it
money,
that way.
a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that's a good point that I definitely wanted to make today, is that, you are not going to find a good medical research that shows us what we are waiting to be shown.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different reasons for that. One, because it takes time and it takes money.
And a lot of times that funding comes from companies that have ulterior motives.
Not a lot of times, 100% of the time.
Yeah.
There is no money to be made. So just imagine a world in which everyone on this planet knew what we did.
Yeah.
And chose not to buy all of the foods that are making us sick.
Yeah.
Can you imagine all of the industries that would go under overnight?
Yeah.
I mean, we are talking big food companies, big pharmaceutical companies, everything medical would just implode because there would be no need for it.
Yeah.
There would be no need for all of these big money-driven corporations if everyone knew what we did and put it into practice.
Yeah.
But
that what we're continuing to learn. I don't know everything. I'm learning every day. Like this morning, I was listening to a book that's just blowing my mind about macronutrients and the fats that our body needs and stuff like that. I mean, Lauren and I are just as much students of life as any of our listeners.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and not only gaining knowledge, but also putting it into practice, because the reality is like, okay, so last weekend I went to go see my family and then to Oklahoma. So my family's in Texas, and then I went to Oklahoma for Kelsey's baby shower. And so it was a quick trip. And despite all of the knowledge that I have in my brain, I succumbed to the drug-like effects of sugar. I mean, literally, I consciously made a decision all 4 days that I was traveling. Actually, it's 5 days. And I ate stuff that I know all of the biological changes that it does. And I know what it does to my body. I know what it does to my brain. My knee starts hurting again. I'm completely bloated, my GI tract, like all these things. And that's, knowledge is potential power if you don't put it into practice. But the fact is that the food we're eating, it's worse than any drug.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not telling you to go take heroin, because heroin's not as bad as processed food. They're all bad.
Let's put that there now.
but it is just as bad. And
that's the intensity of it, is that it is comparable to drugs.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, it's so true. And that's the thing. Don't wait for medicine and the medical community to come up with a study to prove all this stuff. Because one, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And two, as long as we live in a litigious society, you will not have doctors that tell you the advice that's actually going to change your health and your body, because all of the medical literature it's not there to give them the ability to give you the proper advice. Yeah. So even
that's coming from a doctor
telling
you that now.
even if you have for instance, I've got quite a few physician friends that I used to practice medicine with that have become enlightened, if you will, with nutrition. And yet the fact is that it's a quandary, because they still practice medicine, so they are held medically legally liable.
Yeah.
And if you give a patient a device who has high cholesterol and you tell them, okay, these are the dietary changes you really need to have, and if they go on to have a heart attack, they're going to sue you.
Yeah.
Well, doctor, You've got no research to back your advice. So like there's so many things that are going against us changing this huge tsunami of it's just taking us all down and it's killing us all.
Yeah. I think the doctors that are empowered and do know better, like you said, their hands are kind of tied. And that's why it's so important that you step into your power and gain knowledge and do research and take the best care of yourself that you can.
And use common sense. I mean, the fact is that obesity wasn't an issue with humans until really agricultural times.
Yeah.
For the 2.5 million years that humans have been walking on this planet, we are hunters and gatherers.
Yeah.
We ate the animals and the birds that we were able to kill, and we ate the food that we could gather on the ground. And it wasn't until the good old tools that led to agriculture that we started to have the issues that we have, and especially in the last 50 to 100 years.
Yeah.
And truly, I can only imagine a person that's listening and like, well, Lauren, what am I supposed to do? Where do I even start?
Start here.
Yeah. A great place to start is changing the way that you view food.
Yeah.
Because food is fuel. It's and when it's seen as fuel, it can still give you pleasure, because so many people have the misconception that, well, you want me to eat whole foods that are healthy? That's not going to be good.
I can't tell you the last time I shed a tear over a dinner that I've made that is whole food and nutrient dense. I can't tell you the last time I cried about that, not wanting to do that because it's not happened.
Right. Well, and I'd love nothing more than, like, I just got a text message from one of my new clients who she messaged me this morning, and she's like, oh my gosh, I am so grateful that we crossed paths, because I've always struggled with this and that, and I never thought that I could gain control over it again. And it's because big food companies want you to believe that if you stop eating our big food that tastes so hyper palatable that you're not gonna enjoy food, and you're not gonna lose weight and blah blah blah, because it's not low fat, low calorie, blah blah blah. And just becoming enlightened and then putting into practice can change everything.
Yeah. And it's funny because if you allow yourself to change your palate for the foods that you enjoy, when you go to like you said, just justify, like, even though it's bad for you, justify having it a little here or there. It's so gross. Like, you could, just because your body adjusts to just whole foods and nutrient dense foods, and then you go to eat something that is like that. It's so funny because to me it's gross now. It tastes gross. It doesn't taste good or taste like a reward to me. Like, it's so sweet or so salty that it's just like, ugh.
Right. Yeah. See, I disagree with that.
Really?
Because those cookies that I had at Kelsey's baby shower,
I think
really were good.
I think it's because I just got off of a 21-day cleanse. So my palate is super just
it
dialed
changed
in right now. Yeah. Cause I had pizza last night.
And it tastes pretty damn good, right?
No, it was gross because my palate has changed over the past 21 days.
And you're the pizza girl.
I was so sad. It won't stay like that forever, I know, but trust me. But I'm just saying, when you are so when you're so dialed in, it's just interesting that how your palate does change. If you allow it to, your palate will change. It really will. Exactly.
And I think that so many people don't realize that is a possibility, that their palate can change. I mean, go ahead.
Speaking of the, macronutrients and calorie in versus calorie out, I think that a lot of people, one of the first initial things that I think that people do when they start to get educated about, okay, if I need to eat less calories, work out more, I think something very common is that if it fits your macros lifestyle. What do you think about that?
I think that a lifestyle that is not sustainable for the rest of your life is just setting you up for a short-term success, but a long-term failure.
Sure.
Because the reality is, just like under eating and low calorie diets, it's not sustainable. Yeah. If you eat less and exercise more, it will temporarily help you lose weight, but it's not because of the calorie in versus calorie out. There's all these other factors that come along with it. But counting your macros, I think that if we just get back to nature, that counting our macros isn't something we necessarily have to do forever. Now, that being said, it's a great place to start. I think that it gives people more of a concept of understanding, because, like, for instance, I think a lot of people think that carbohydrates are a necessary macronutrient. And hey, guess what? It's not. Protein and fat are the only two macronutrients that are required for life. Like if you can't eat protein and or fat, you can't live.
Sustain yourself.
Yeah. But carbohydrates are not. Yet our food pyramid tells us that we're supposed to eat 50% of our daily intake from carbohydrates. Really? But who does that help? That helps these big food companies that make a lot of money. That, I mean, it all, and it makes me sick the more and more I learn. But go ahead, you were going to say something.
Well, I think that another thing that with the if it fits your macros and fitting it into your calorie count for the day is that people don't focus on the nutrients of the food that they're eating. Just because you can have 200 calories of carbs, so you're going to eat rice, doesn't mean it's beneficial to your body. It doesn't mean it's serving you and making you healthier. You may be losing weight because you're restricting calories. That doesn't mean the food that you're eating within, let's say, that 1200 calorie bracket is nutrient dense. It doesn't mean you're healthy just because you're losing weight.
Correct. If we put a person on a 1200 calorie a day Oreo diet, do you really think that's healthy?
Yeah.
No. And it doesn't take a doctor or someone that has read a bunch of nutrition to know that. I mean, it's common sense.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
No, it's not healthy at all. And your body will not function at its best, and you will feel like crap. You will have diseases. You will, I mean,
I used to work with someone and they were following an if it fits your macros lifestyle, and they would eat a Starbucks mini frappuccino every day because it's only 200 calories.
Oh my goodness.
It fits my macros. And I just was like, I just don't, how does that not, like, just common sense, how does that not register to you?
Right.
You know, like it's so, it might be 200 calories, but look at the nutrition. What's the sugar like? What's the dairy in it? You know, like, it's just so interesting because I think that people, because they're eating those calories and they're losing weight, they think they're healthy.
Yeah. Well, and that's the whole mindset that I want people to get away from, is that you're still seeing it as, well, it's calories. Okay. Instead of seeing it as nutrition, it's nutrition, and what in this food is doing what for my body.
Yeah.
And
I think that another thing that is very common, and I think another one of the places that people start to first initially think about calories in versus calorie out is Fitbit trackers, because they have that on there.
Yep.
What do you think about relying on that as something to gauge your progress?
So, one, anytime that there is money to be made, you want to be questioning, you know. I mean, the fact is that the whole Fitbit industry, you know, and I mean, Fitbit is just one of the brands, but
I own a Fitbit.
I'm
consumer right here.
Yeah, Apple Watch right here.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm not saying that they're all evil, because if that is what instigates someone to start taking control of their own health and fitness, awesome.
Yeah.
But
that's why I'm asking, because I think that that's a common place that people start, is they're like, I'm going to be better and healthier. How can I learn more about that? I'm going to get a Fitbit or an Apple Watch or, you know, whatever.
and this is where that voice in the back of your head has to say, yeah, but what about Susie, who you've known for 10 years, who's worn a Fitbit for like 8 of those years, and she's still obese? Like it becomes, if it's a tool that's used to help get you on the right track, then that's awesome. But I think it's another way to tell us what we want to do. And I don't know. I'm not telling people to not buy them. I mean, obviously I have my own.
I use one. I love to know how many calories I burned in a workout or whatever. I mean, I'm totally guilty of like enjoying seeing that.
Because and truly, like I literally almost on a daily basis, I'm more conscious and aware of thinking like that. Because like yesterday, for example, so I teach my Club Fitz class on Tuesdays and Thursdays, right?
Yeah.
And I'm in the shift shop, right? I'm in the test group. And so on those days I get 2 workouts in, and like untraining my brain to think like, well, you got 2 exercises in or 2 workouts in, so you can eat, that like
a little bit more.
Exactly. That's where we get
it.
Yes, that's where we get in trouble. And the fact is that, a person that maybe parks far from their destination, they'll end up justifying the extra, loaf of bread at the restaurant. And the reality is your 2 kcals that you burned is not, but
did not earn you nothing.
No, but that's the thing. It's that the way that in which we think. I mean, it's ingrained in us. I know that it's not just as easy as, well, you burn the calories and you have a deficit by the end of the week, because the whole concept is, a pound of fat, you have to burn 3,500 calories. And I mean, that's where that, and it just makes me ill how many patients that I gave that advice to. And it's wrong, but that has been ingrained in us that, well, if we just have a deficit at the end of the day, then I'll ultimately lose weight. Well, no, it's not that simple.
Yeah.
So
I think that having a device like that, I think is a good way to empower yourself to feel like you are like taking ownership of your health. But I think you have to be very careful relying on that to be your source of how you take care of your health. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. It does. And also don't let it be an excuse to not take your rose colored glasses off. Cause the reality is, I mean, like, let's talk about exercise. Cause people think the opposite side of it, not just the under eating, but the exercise. Well, I can out exercise a bad diet, right?
I, especially people my age, I see so many Snapchats of people that are holding an ice cream cone, and I can see their Nike tennis shoes below it, and it says, "I earned this because I just got out of the gym," and I'm just like,
Yep. It's not just the millennials, girl. I mean,
that's what I see the most, because that's who I follow mostly
on
Snapchat.
Right.
It's just like, yeah, I don't know. It just drives me crazy. And I'm guilty of that. Like, trust me. I cannot say that I have had a workout and then be like, hey, gonna go get pizza because I earned it. But it's just so hard to, because like you said, it's ingrained in us, that reward system / counting calories. Like it's really hard to take control of that, because like you said, it's just like, it's common nature because it's what we've been taught. Like that's what we feel like we're supposed to do. So it's hard to reverse that thinking. Absolutely.
But, the fact is that, okay, so this is a statistic. Listen to this. So if it were, well, we can just exercise more because that'll burn more calories and then we'll have the deficit at the end of the week. So in 1972, gyms made approximately about $200 million. Fast forward to 2005, the gym industry is over $16 billion industry. So obviously we're exercising more. We're spending way more money on exercise. So we should all be super in shape with 6-packs, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Heck yeah.
No.
Do you want to know how fit I would be right now?
I mean,
if that
for real.
were the truth.
For real. Seriously. Yeah. And especially those of us that like to exercise. And I definitely, I wanted to make sure that I said the fact that, look, and we did a whole freaking episode of what exercise is and isn't.
Yeah.
It isn't your way to lose weight. It has so many other great benefits. And for those I have to focus on. Like, I love what my Club Fitz class brings me. I get so much good release of neurotransmitters in my brain that help fight depression, that help create a community with my class people, that like, it's just, there's so many other reasons why I exercise, and I love to exercise, but untraining my brain to think that, okay, well, I can justify my, eating more.
Yourself. Yeah.
I think a lot of people, as far going back to the Fitbit question, the big goal is I want people to learn how to make healthy choices for a healthy lifestyle that will stick for a lifetime, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's not about quick fixes. It's not about, because I mean, truly nothing good in life comes easily. And if you're being sold on a magic pill, a magic pink drink, a magic wrap, a magic patch, these things are temporary fixes. And can they help you temporarily lose weight? Some can. Some are just complete crap, but that's, we're not going to go there. But
that's for us to know and for you to decide.
Exactly. But I want people to learn how to have knowledge and apply it to life and over the long term, so that they cannot be that patient that was on my OR table that every time I put to sleep was like, oh, if I would have just met this person 15 years ago, he or she wouldn't be here needing whatever the surgery is, So getting them to change that mindset is, one of the biggest challenges. As far as exercise goes, exercise needs to be in your daily habit for sure.
Yeah.
But for different purposes.
Yes. Not for the reason that you think it is.
No.
I always tell my clients, I tell them, I'm going to have you exercise 30 minutes a day because it's good for your overall health. What I'm going to do to help you lose weight is take you out of the gym and put you in the kitchen. That's what we're going to do. That's
so good. That needs to be on a t-shirt.
Robert, write it down.
Yep.
T-shirt idea.
Yep.
We're going to have like multiple seasons of clothing come out.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. No, but it's true. And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about food and how powerful it is, both in good and bad ways. One of the most underestimated powerful hormone, in my opinion, is insulin. And so many people, they hear insulin and they automatically think diabetes. I don't have diabetes, and then are done.
I'm fine. Yeah.
It's crazy because I don't think I've told you this before. So for listeners, I am a Western medicine doctor. I've got my medical degree, but I am more Eastern medicine minded, meaning that I definitely believe that pretty much almost every ailment that we see in 2017 can be made better, if not completely be cured, by changing all of these, all the food, all the drink, all of our environment, like everything that is in our power to change it can be made better. And it has nothing to do with me writing you a prescription and going to the pharmacy or having a procedure or a surgery.
Yes.
Now those will always be necessary because there will never be a utopian society where everyone does that. So it's necessary. It's a necessary evil. Right. But for the few that choose to take this knowledge and run with it, they need to be empowered with knowing that. And so a naturopathic doctor is one that I think the letters that are behind their name are NP PD, naturopathic doctor, I believe.
Uh-huh.
And this is one of the many kinds of doctors, and I say it in quotes for people that are not watching on the YouTube channel, that I totally rolled my eyes at and laughed. Not laughed, but maybe internally laughed at, like, whatever, that's woo-woo, and like
They're from the funny
chiropractors
farm.
and Chinese medicine doctors and all of these things in which a majority of Western medicine doctors have that mindset that we believe that, well, we know everything, they don't know crap and whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have obviously changed my mindset and hence the more Eastern medicine minded mindset that I have. So I went to a naturopathic doctor, maybe it was this time last year, or no, it was at the beginning of my exploration of nutrition. And so I wanted to get their opinion of where I'm at. So I got a bunch of different labs drawn, labs that I wouldn't typically have gotten if I would have just gone to my family practitioner or, you know, my annual physical, which I'd never get. And people always ask me, but that being said, it was interesting because, I mean, if you just look at me on the outside, you would think that, okay, that girl's in shape. She exercises, she eats well and whatnot. All of my labs looked great, but I already had insulin resistance.
Really?
Yeah. And
how interesting.
Yes. And so, and I say this because I want people to open their minds to the idea that, okay, just because I haven't been given the diagnosis of diabetes, you still need to care about insulin.
Yeah.
You need to care about it in a major way.
Yeah. And especially because it's the fat storing hormone.
Oh yeah. Well, and any doctor will tell you the moment that you have a patient, then you have to put them on insulin, they start gaining weight. Insulin makes you gain weight. I mean, there was one great example of a woman who was given the diagnosis of diabetes and was on insulin and always injected her insulin on the same two places on her thigh, right? On bilateral one, you know, literally there was basically a fat ball after 10 years. So it happened gradually, but insulin causes fat. And it's on the hormonal level. So this is why it's biology, not physics.
Physics, yes.
In my challenge groups for my customers and my coaches, I encourage them that if they can invest in a glucometer, that they should, because a glucometer is not just for diabetic patients. You can get it on Amazon. The kind that I have actually measures both blood glucose and blood ketones. It's Precision XR. It's one of the few brands that has both of those. But if you had to choose, I would much prefer you to monitor your blood glucose. And
interesting.
And once people start to have the realization that, okay, this is what my fasting blood glucose looks like. This is what my blood glucose is 2 hours after eating. And this is what it looks like going before I go to bed. Once they realize that, oh, wait, I thought I was healthy, but maybe this whole, like, for instance, the bro science that's given by, you know, a ton of people that have no.
I love when you say that.
It's so true. It's so.
I know, but it's just such a good way to put it. I would have never thought of it.
Yeah, dude. You need to eat 6 meals every 2 hours and a whole lot of brown rice and chicken and broccoli and and that's gonna get you in awesome shape, dude. No,
so funny.
No. So the fact is that our bodies were not meant to be eating every 2 and 3 hours.
Yeah.
And it's because of insulin.
So for people that, if they're sitting here thinking, okay, if you're talking about fat and insulin, why do I need to measure my glucose, Lauren? What does that have in relation to insulin?
That's a great question. Now you can actually, I don't know if there's any monitors that you can actually measure your insulin, or if you just have to go to labs, but there is a way. I mean, that would ultimately be the best way. Sure. But I'm pretty sure that you can only get insulin measured at labs. but blood glucose is the best way to see what your insulin is doing. Okay.
Mhm.
So you should, so the body does not like high glucose
Yeah.
in the body, right? But insulin resistance means that your body is constantly shooting out insulin from your pancreas.
Mm.
And your body, it's just like the boy that cried wolf.
Yeah.
The first time that he cried wolf, everyone came, and the second time, the third time, the fourth time, there's less of a reaction.
Yeah.
So if your pancreas, which is the only place in your body that produces insulin,
Yeah.
if your pancreas is constantly shooting out insulin, it becomes resistant to it. So it doesn't have the same effect when it's the way it's supposed to, right?
It stops listening to the signals.
Exactly.
Sure.
So if your body's insulin regulation is not the way it's supposed to,
Mm.
your blood glucose is going to be higher than it should be. And so that's the best way to see what is going on with your insulin, because
Sure.
if after you've been fasting overnight and you wake up and your blood sugar is 120, 130, like that's not good. That means that you've got some insulin resistance going on.
Mm.
And you know, just like myself, I was totally shocked because I thought that I was doing good, but this was before I had learned everything that I had. And I thought that I was eating healthy
Sure.
by eating, you know, low fat and calories restriction and whatnot. And
Yeah.
and I was still, I mean, the number on the scale, not overweight. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I remember sitting in her office and like I was in workout clothes and she's like, you know, obviously you're not like my typical patient. You're
Yeah.
super in shape, but you have some insulin resistance. I'm like,
Mm.
what? No way.
And it's interesting because so even just within the past month here, if I would be hearing you say this, I would be thinking that so I need to stop eating carbs and sugar because that's what metabolizes to glucose. But even things like dairy metabolize to glucose. Some dairies, like it's not just, okay, I don't eat cookies and I don't eat bread. Like you really have to pay attention to the sugar content in what you're eating and how your body metabolizes it. Because it's not
Absolutely.
just pastries and breads, it's anything that has sugar in it, which is almost everything.
Yep.
Will metabolize to glucose, even fruits.
Yeah.
And so that's why glucose spikes insulin, which, like you said, it's the fat storing hormone. So it's a lot more than just avoiding bread or sugars. It's you really have to step into your power and learn what foods indicate that. Because like I said, even I was listening to a book this morning and it talked about how like cottage cheese metabolizes into dairy sugar, I think is what he said.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea, because you think cottage cheese, you think, oh, protein, you know,
Right.
and so it's
Of
just
course.
it's so interesting.
Because that's what they want you to think about.
Yeah.
Because it's great marketing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Anything that is ose at the end, lactose, that's a sugar. And yeah, and you know, I think about I think about the person who is eating the standard American diet and they're listening to this podcast and they're like feeling overwhelmed and like basically doomed. Like, where do I even start?
Yeah.
A great place to start is just to start with simply cutting out sugar and flour.
Yeah.
Like right there, you're going to have a great challenge, because once you start learning to read ingredients, not just the nutrition label of fat, protein, and carbohydrates, but actually looking at ingredients, that is a great place to start.
Yeah.
Once you cut those out, you start to realize how good you can feel, and how the food that you're eating is actually, it's not giving, it might give you immediate pleasure because it's hitting those neurotransmitters in your brain that are the same that we get from drugs.
Yeah.
But long term, they're giving you a bunch of bad stuff. And so that's the first place that I want people to start.
Yeah.
But the fact is that, I mean, even fruit, you know, I think it was Dave Asprey, the bulletproof, coffee guy. Yeah. Who love him. He was one of the first places that I started in my search to learn about nutrition. I mean, his podcast is awesome.
I use his products every day.
Yep. So do I.
Yeah.
And I've turned a lot of people onto his products as well.
Same.
We're going to meet. We're going to meet at one point. I have a feeling.
He has a bulletproof coffee shop in
I've
Southern
been
California.
to it.
I want to go to it.
Yeah.
It's like a destination. I'm so nerdy, but it's like a destination on my list of places to go. Is the bulletproof coffee shop.
No, I bet this time last year when I came out to California to see if this is where I was going to move, I that was one of the first places that I went to. I'm a nerd like that.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Cool.
So I had
Not
bulletproof
alone.
coffee in Santa Monica at the first bulletproof coffee shop. So
that's
yeah,
so awesome.
But he is God, he's got a great source of information. And the first time that I started thinking about food and seeing fat differently, the whole idea of putting coconut oil or MCT oil and grass-fed butter in your coffee. I mean, what?
Yeah.
But the fact is that once you start to change your nutrition, I mean, your body starts to function the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
And he was the one that I first heard it said that don't say eat your fruits and veggies. They're two totally different food groups. And the fact is that our ancestor, our Paleolithic ancestors, had very few limited times that they were exposed to fruit throughout a year. A lot of them were never exposed to fruit. And
because
then
it's seasonal.
Yes.
In a normal world, it's seasonal.
Yes. And it's not hyper palatable. I mean, our fruit has been genetically changed to be hyper palatable.
Yeah.
So, would I rather you eat that super extra juicy apple over the Snickers bar? Yeah, but I would rather you not eat either of them, honestly.
Yeah. And that's another thing that I think people really struggle with understanding is that they're like, wait, I'm not supposed to eat fruit? What do you mean? Is it fruit healthy? Like, it's just little steps, little time, just a little bit at a time, just a little more information, apply a little more knowledge, research a little more.
But it's that voice though that I want them to keep going on. That voice, like, wait, what? You're telling me to not eat fruit? Don't just stop there. Go
question
read.
It. Go research
it. Question. Yeah. Because you're going to be amazed at like, oh, well, hell, I didn't realize that. I mean, there's so much to be learned. And I mean, I feel like I was definitely robbed from med school by not being taught pretty much anything about nutrition. But I feel like I'm going to spend the rest of my life continuing to learn about how complex the system is, yet it's simple. Yeah. We got to get back to eating the food that we were designed to before all of this 2017, everything that we have, right?
Yeah.
So where do we start? Oh, and another thing I want to go back to your point about the Fitbit. A person has higher likelihood of making a lifestyle change stick when they collect data. Yeah. And so one good thing, I've never owned a Fitbit. I do have an Apple Watch. And I think that having a way to keep track of data helps a person in the initial stage, whether that initial stage be a few months, a few years, whatever.
Because like I said, it gives them a sense of power that they are in control of their health. Like that, I feel like is the first time that a lot of people feel like they have a say in what they're doing.
Yes. As long as it's leading to progression.
Yes.
And, and that's the thing, like, that's what I don't want people to, I mean, I can think of so many people that I know still are overweight, but they get their 10,000 steps a day. Well, that's great. But what overall good has it done you?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, it's gotten you moving. That's good.
Yeah.
Because humans are not meant to be sedentary. We are meant to
We're
not
designed
sit.
to move.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're doing that to help you lose weight, then okay, we got to talk. Right. But stuff like Fitbits, stuff like apps that help you count your macros or or write down your food,
Yeah.
data, recording your blood glucose, recording your inches, recording your pictures. All of those things are definitely helpful in getting out of the rat wheel that we're on.
Yes.
And getting off of that so that this can stick as a lifestyle. It's not easy though, guys. I mean, like as much as I've learned, it's still not easy for me. It's easier.
Yeah.
But the longer that
Same.
you have had this mindset and the way that that we've been taught to believe, the harder it is to untrain that, but it is possible.
Sure.
And so, stuff like Fitbits or whatever way that you collect data, I think is great.
Yeah.
Because you're more likely to stick to that lifestyle when you collect data.
The best data that you can rely on is the ones that come from your own self-experiments.
Right.
Not something you find online, not an article that you find.
Yes.
The best data you will ever find is what you experiment on yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And one of our upcoming episodes that we're going to be talking about is talking about fasting, and a guy that's probably one of the most well-known physicians in the world of fasting. I just heard an interview with him just the other day, and he was just like, look, take my advice. I don't care. I've got 12,000 patients that have taken my advice, and I've got no double-blinded randomized controlled studies to do it because it will never exist. We will never have a good medical research that looks at fasting and how great it is and all of the benefits. Just with resetting your insulin sensitivity, fasting alone is awesome.
Yeah.
But
which is something that's so simple to be able to implement, but that's not nutrition, not calories, not exercise. It's just a tweak that you make in when you eat.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's one of the most simple changes that people can start with. Like very, very simple. You see results from it, you feel empowered, you move on to the next step.
Absolutely. In fact, one of my coaches just messaged me because she hadn't tried intermittent fasting yet. And we're going to talk about all kinds of fasting, not just intermittent fasting.
Yeah. But that's one of them.
Yeah. But she literally just sent me a message this morning and showed me, she was like, I just thought you should see this picture. And it was a picture her today versus her 3 months ago, because she had stalled in her weight loss. And I'm like, okay, so talk to me about, have you tried intermittent fasting yet? And so we made some tweaks, and I mean, sure enough, like it's crazy. Yeah. She's like, why did I not think about this? Like, you got to need me as a coach. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you got to need me somewhere.
Right. But insulin is, we will do a podcast, and maybe that should be our next podcast is just about insulin alone.
Yeah.
Because man, if people can really untrain their mindset of, I've got to burn more calories than I ate, and I've got to have a deficit, and really start to think about, okay, how does this food affect my insulin, and how do I reverse the insulin insensitivity that I've developed from eating this kind of diet that everyone has taught me is supposed to be helpful, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's gotten me to insulin insensitivity, and I need to reverse that. That is how I want to help people to change their mindset.
Yeah.
Because
it all goes back to calories in versus calories out, and that thought process.
Yes.
It all circles back to that.
Yes.
And how, like you said, like, I love that you put it that way, because that's not something that I could have ever come up in my mind, that it's biology versus physics. Like, I would have never thought to explain it that way, but that's so spot on.
Yeah.
It just makes so much sense.
It does. And just literally being aware of the littlest things of, subconscious thoughts that you don't realize that you have, that are spawned from that belief.
Yeah.
That belief that it's physics, but it's not, guys. It's biology. It's totally biology. And if we can get people to just understand that, it will change their health, and it will change the health of their families and generations to come.
Yeah.
So okay.
Awesome.
Is there anything that we've left out? Because I feel like, I mean, this is it's a huge topic. And
and that's the thing, is like, every topic that we cover is a huge topic that we could talk about for hours.
Right? For real.
So it's not like this will be the last that you hear of this topic. Every topic that we talk about, we'll probably revisit multiple times.
True.
So.
Absolutely. And add on to it. And I did want to, I wrote down on my notes of things that I wanted to make sure I didn't forget to mention. One of those scenarios that you're like, well, this just doesn't make sense. Like the exercise thing, right? So there was a Finnish study that was done in 2006 that they looked at 13,000 runners. So marathon runners, half marathon runners, whatnot. And granted, the ones that ran the most were the thinnest.
Yeah.
But the fact is that all of them had a trend to gain weight over the years, despite their exercising so much. And like, if it were just as easy, I'm trying to think where I read this. If it were just as simple as calories in versus calories out, we would have to exercise like a female that runs would have to run like in her 40s, like 2.5 hours a day. I mean, it's something crazy like that.
I was just going to say, if that was the case, I would be so much heavier than I am. If it was calories in versus calories out, I'd be so much heavier than I am right now.
Yes, absolutely. So anyway, so we could talk about this for hours, but I definitely want to get people to start thinking and start changing their ways of thinking. And just remember that, we get one life and it's not a dress rehearsal. And so for people that are waiting for the right time, waiting to get past, their vacation or their birthday or their special event or whatever, like I'm not asking them to be perfect, but I'm asking them to start today. And don't take for granted this life that you have, because you only get one and you're not guaranteed tomorrow.
Yep.
All right, Cinthanie, you have a message for the listeners.
I do. You are a good person and you deserve good things to happen to you.
And a good health.
Yes.
A good bill of health. You deserve that.
Yes.
Just because
be empowered.
Just because you have genes that are not the greatest does not mean that is your destiny. You are not doomed to that.
Don't be a victim of your circumstances.
No, absolutely. Well, we appreciate you guys so much taking the time to listen to this episode. and we hope that you take this information and let it lead to a more fit and healthy life.
Yes.
Much love, guys. Ciao. Make sure that you find us on social media. You can find Cinthanie on Instagram and Facebook at Cinthanie. So that's CINTHANIE, and on Snapchat at Cinthanie P. And find me on social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all at Club Fitz Fitness. Remember, that's FITZ Fitness. And on Snapchat, just at Club Fitz. I appreciate your time listening so much. If you enjoyed this episode of the Fitz and Healthy podcast, can you please go do me a favor and go subscribe at whatever platform that it is that you listen to podcasts. Leave a review. We read every single review and we appreciate the time that you take to leave your thoughts and opinions. Now, also remember, while I am a medical doctor, the information I provide here is not intended to provide medical advice or a professional diagnosis, opinion, treatment, or services to you or to any other individual. I am providing general information for educational and informational purposes only, and it is not a substitute for medical or professional care. You should not use this information in place of a visit, call, consultation, or the advice of your physician or other healthcare provider. The information I share is not intended to treat, cure, or diagnose any disease or medical condition. If you believe you have a medical emergency, just call 911 immediately or your physician. Now, enough of that medical legal jargon. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I appreciate your time. Now, go live a fit and healthy life.